Hey, today I want to talk about the top considerations you need to think about if you want to invest in my hometown of Perth. Because there's lots of wonderful reasons why you should consider it, but there's definitely some quirks about that particular city that you need to think about if you are interstate and you're thinking about investing into the Perth market. And the number one consideration for me is it's a boom-bust town. It's largely driven by the activity in the northwest of the state around the mines, and a lot of good incomes are generated when the mining sector is booming. Now, Perth is vulnerable at times when the mining sector isn't booming. So here we are in 2017, and for the last few years it's been quite flat as that sector has come off. So it's important to understand if you're going to buy in the Perth marketplace that has principally one product being a rock and a big customer in China, if that part of the market is down, you want to make sure that the properties you've bought are strong on fundamentals. So for me, I'm not that keen on investing in mining towns because it's a bit of a white knuckle ride. But if you're in Perth, you want to think about the fundamentals of economic activity, human interest and human behaviour. Think about the fact that not everyone's employed in the mining sector in Perth. There are doctors and accountants and lawyers and dentists and teachers. So there's still commerce that happens in that city. So have a think about what's really, really important to those people and make sure you have properties that take into account those core fundamentals, which drives into my second point here is what are those lifestyle drivers that exist in Perth? And principally, when people aren't working, they're flocking to either the beach, the river, or the city. So you want to have that proximity to those big three. And the Swan River is really large. You know, on the foreshore, on Australia Day, it's a huge party when the fireworks are in place. There's planes flying, there's yachts everywhere. It's a big space for people to get out and enjoy on the weekend. There's always boats up and down there going to Rottnest Island. There's lots of eateries on the banks of the Swan River. So it's important that you understand proximity to the Swan River is a large driver, and also proximity to the beach. We've got these beautiful white sandy beaches with a beautiful temperate climate where you can enjoy the beach year round. So if you can sort of get close to the city, close to the river, or close to the beach, that's ideal. And they've got what's called the Golden Triangle in Perth, which is the coast, the northern bank of the river, and then coming across to the city if you have a look at the map, which is really our premier real estate. And something that's interesting for interstate people when they're investing in Perth is the western suburbs on the east coast are usually considered to be the lower demographic suburbs, whereas the western suburbs in Perth are the premier suburbs because they're closer to the coast, you get the sunset every day, it's amazing. So consider what the lifestyle drivers are in Perth: proximity to the city, proximity to the river, and proximity to the beach, and try and find real estate that ideally takes into account all three of them, but at least takes into account one of them. Now, I mentioned before it's got a beautiful temperate climate, so my third point here is strongly consider outdoor space, because people who live in Perth want to take advantage of that. So if you're buying a townhouse, you want a courtyard. If you're buying an apartment, you want to make sure there's some outdoor space so that you can take advantage of the wonderful lifestyle that the weather affords you in the Perth marketplace. Now, for me, the fourth point is understand that parking is really, really important, because although the public transport in Perth is well and truly improving, I mean, as a kid, when I grew up in Perth, I hardly ever went on the train, whereas now there's a train that's running through the freeway all the way down to Mandurah. You've got the train that goes from Fremantle through to the city. So people are starting to embrace that more, but still it's a city that's heavily dependent on cars. You need a car to get around. So when people are tenants and people are living there in general, they expect to have the double lock-up garage as the standard. They expect to have off-street parking, which if you're in Melbourne and Sydney, that's a bonus if you've got it, but it's okay if you don't. In Perth, you really want to make sure that you take advantage of having that parking available. And for me, the fifth point is to consider where you can larger block sizes, because the typical dwelling in Perth is still people want to live in a house, but I think that'll change over time as that city gets bigger and more dense. And whilst public transport isn't a huge driver right now in terms of proximity to a train station, that will change over time. Because as more people move there, the density starts to improve, congestion will start to become more and more of a problem, which will make the convenience of getting around much, much better. But if you've got a larger block size, you may have the potential to redevelop that. You may be able to subdivide the back and maybe put 1 or 2 townhouses on it, for example. So, and for me, in that city, whilst apartment living isn't massive, I would consider buying the old style 70s flats in the really blue chip suburbs. You know, think down close towards Fremantle, think, you know, closer to the river, all the way up and down the river, in Scarborough, all that Golden Triangle area. If you buy those older style flats that are around the beautiful homes in those areas, I still think they've got the potential to go up in the future. But I would avoid the brand new style apartments because I don't think that, I think that's too far in the future for that particular market. So there you have it. If you are considering investing into the Perth marketplace, there's just a few things for you to consider to make sure that you don't bring your interstate paradigms into that market when you're looking to invest there.